Righty. Well, it says we are recording. Welcome. Good morning, farmer. And my name is Dave Myers, and with me also is Brad Paleg, and we're both here working the technical scene behind the camera here. The Good Morning Farmer started last year, and this is our first session this year on a nice cold January 12th day. Maybe a great time to come in and think about some topics that we have prepared. You'll notice that we only have one topic a month right now, but I do hope that we'll add a few more. So keep watching for Good Morning Farmer sessions that might be added. But right now, one a month, pick some topical areas. Anyway, you're all welcome. Throw things in chat. We'll try to keep up with what's going on in the chat. I do want to give you a short presentation here on the topic of urban farming, urban agriculture. So without any further ado, we'll get started on the slides here. And let me find the button. Of course, University of Maryland has a little statement here. We hope that we all consider this as we go through our conversation this morning, that we really are for everyone, right? And urban agriculture, I really have gotten excited about urban agriculture here. Always been excited about it, but maybe I actually say I got my start in kind of an urban agricultural setting in Anne Arundel County in my grandfather's place. But I guess the question, and we'll have a couple of questions to ponder as we get later on in the session, how can we making it a reality in every community? And so again, that's the goal here. Again, my name is Dave Myers, I'm an extension agent in Anne Arundel County. And welcome everyone. Sure is great. Glad to have everyone here with us this morning. So, I've kind of, unfortunately, I did a presentation a number of years ago. I look back, back in 2012 to the Agronomy Society in the Northeast branch. And that was this topic here, the urban agriculture. And I actually called it the chance. And the reason why I said that, because it's been a very fragile opportunity for farming to exist at the interface of what I call the asphalt and the plow intersection. and it seems like, and then I come up with this question just for this session today: is urban farming merely a placeholder for agriculture in the future? And what does that mean? To me, I think, and this whole idea is it's just a chance that it can exist. And how can we make it different than just having it be a chance that it exists? And merely just a placeholder. I'd hate to think that urban agriculture is just a placeholder for whatever, a development or whatever use that people think are wiser. Unfortunately, typically it's not wiser, but maybe not the wisest move for the environment. But anyway, that's our put that thought in your mind. Is urban farming merely a placeholder? And what can we do to make it less than just a chance that farming exists as the asphalt ever increases and encumbers upon the intersection of the plow? And I've lived in Anne Arundel County my whole life, and you're always kind of focused in on where you're at in one little point in the world. But this is a big world, and I always love this slide. It shows the population density. Of course, it's back a few years now, and we could change those colors a little bit. You'll notice that magenta color is where you get to pretty high density populations of people. And I bet now, if we looked at the U.S. right now in this day and age, we would be pretty much getting magenta color, most the East Coast and West Coast. And so keep that in mind. And if you look around the world, you'll notice that it's not coincidence. There's not a coincidence that these are population centers around the world. When you look at the soil carbon map, I think that's pretty amazing too. Wherever we have high populations of people, we also have good agricultural soils. And so these soils are basically the sustenance of that ability to have these great populations. But it's not a fountain of wealth, and it's not going to last forever. And there's going to be a termination point, I think, to the population, or at least a bell curve at some point that coincides with what we're capable of doing with our soils. But I'm not too concerned that we're near that point yet. A lot of people are doom and gloom about population, but I have a feeling we can go a lot further than we can with technology and science. So our farmers have the ability to produce an amazing amount of crop, and probably a lot more than we're producing. And especially if we bring in more opportunity at that urban fringe. And I think that's maybe the exciting opportunity. So if you look at that bell curve that we're on as far as population, we got our first billion in 1804. And then we got our second billion in 1927. Took 123 years to do that. We got our third billion in 1960. I was born in 61, so we were less than half the population at that point. That's kind of sobering, isn't it? And then that took 33 years. And after that, about every less than 15 years, we put on another billion. And so that's where we hit the steep curve. And but we're starting to slow down. If you notice, that it took 20 years, they think, to get to 9 billion. From that, where we are, we'll be at 8 billion by 2025. We're pretty close to that right now. And so think about that. We probably are starting to see the signs of a bell curve effect that population might. So maybe around 14 billion might be where we reach. And I do believe we can feed 14 billion. In fact, I think with the agricultural land that we have now, if we put it all into productive agriculture, with the leading science, then we could easily feed 28 billion. I'm not being a dreamer, but I do believe it's realistic, just based on the amount of land that we have. But we're going to have this generation of agriculturalists that's going to be pretty amazing. I think Cass came out in 2015, which happened to be the year of the soils. I don't know if you remember that. The International Year of the Soils was 2015. Cass came out with this concept that there was going to be this new generation of ag. You know, so Gen X's and whoever generations we have, but eventually it's going to be this Gen Ag. And that's exciting to me too. And I do see a lot more interest in agriculture now. There's agricultural degrees and things like that occurring again. So maybe that's we're at the cusp of that we're going to have to be at the cusp of that eventually, because we've got to feed the world. And so 2015, Gen Ag, we're at the cusp of that. 2020, of course, COVID hit and kind of put a wrench in everything. But 2020 was the International Year of the Plant, and how important plant protection is. So the International Year of the Plant. I think 2025 should be the International Year of the Farmer. I don't know how you put a bid in for that, but that's something I think USDA should consider. We had the Year of the Soils, we had the Year of the Plant, we should have the Year of the Farmer in there, I think, or maybe the Year of Livestock. Urban agriculture chance. I think about this idea that, you know, right at the fringe, you know, where we got the urban sprawl, and we've not managed to put that in check. Now, that really puzzles me, because you look at the rest of the world, we can pop into, and I'll show you some examples, but we could pop into Europe and see they still have their agricultural sectors protected. And we just keep sprawling out in them without any regard to that. So is that just leaving it to chance that we're just going to continue this sprawl pattern and divvy and divide and conquer our properties down into little houseettes, not even farmettes anymore? And then what happens when you do that? When you just leave it to chance, there's no generational interest. You're really leaving that just kind of hanging. And typically you find that people kind of lose hope. The farm technology typically stalls. They're not making any more investments in their farm property. And then next thing you know, farm speculation. What are we going to do with the farm, right? And we come to that dilemma quite often, unfortunately, in this country. I think we need to come up with a better choice than just leaving it to chance. And so moving beyond this placeholder concept of agriculture that the U.S. seems to have, challenges and opportunities for agriculture in regions of rapid urban development. We need to make this happen. Risk and rewards of agricultural operations that have survived the development encroachment and even thrived. You know, you'll typically see that. We'll have these little pockets, or maybe a couple farms clustered, that we really see if somehow they thrived. Well, development went all around them. We see that quite a bit in Maryland. And chances for agricultural success in the future of the U.S. in these urban environments. I think we're seeing kind of a trend right now, and people wanting this to happen, but I'm still not seeing it happen. We've had this trend now for quite a number of years. And so I think the question for us this morning is ponder that. What can we possibly do that we're not doing now to stop this process of this continual divvying up of our property into an urban areas, our agricultural sectors? And, you know, just think about this yellow circle here, right there, put the airport there, BWI, right in the center of that. I remember when that was Friendship Airport, and they didn't have jets, right? When I was a kid. You know, they flew little prop planes in there, right? It's a small little airport, right? And all around it was farming. Every bit of it around there was some of the best agricultural land we had here in this county. And it was the beautiful loamy sands, the best vegetable ground. It was a vegetable hub in the early 1900s, late 1800s. And, it's all but disappeared. And within that hub, I don't know if you remember the Schillinger farm. That's the little Schillinger farm. And then guess what? It's now gone. It's now a high school, right? And so we had the Knopfs and the Pumphreys and the Boyers and the Schillingers, and I could just go on with names, Uptons, and the farms that I saw, right there at that urban fringe, in the 70s and 80s. And now the last one that was of any size, we still have the Knopfs, which is pretty amazing. But it's just, as we reel into that, that's a beautiful little mecca. It was up until 2 years ago. This beautiful little operation called the Papa John's or the Schillinger's farm, and everything. Here's the Uptons, these others are Turners, and they were all farms at one time. And there's still a little bit down here. Knopf's still doing a little bit of farming, so there's still a little bit of farming, but not much. But there's still land, which even when you take in these urban sectors out, you still find these little nooks and crannies of land, which amazes me when you fly in. Now it's the new high school 2022. They're building it this year. I think it'll open in 23. So that's gone just like that, poof. And of course, everyone say, well, we need a new high school. That's progress. Is it? And so here's that, just look at that Schillinger farm a few years before its demise there. And I love working with the family, great times working with them, beautiful operation, very productive. Papa John's stand there a few years ago. There's Jim Schillinger out there with them, from some guests from Uzbekistan. And, it was just a pretty amazing little operation there, producing, look at those tomatoes on the vine there, with putting in all the technology. So you can see that investment that was being made up until the time it went away. A lot of investment was going in there, and a lot of production, very high-end production that I think that we can fit in all these little nooks and crannies, but how do we do it? So we've got, this idea that maybe regulations have to be changed. And, is it the only reason why it's left to chance? Because we just can't come up with the proper regulations and zoning, and taxation and land opportunity. And so probably a lot of that is true. And that's something we need to address, I think, as we think about urban farming. Of course, zoning, here's one that kind of, I think, goes back to maybe a little more time period when there was this divide between you're a city dweller and I'm a country dweller. And they come up with zoning laws during that period of time that don't really make much sense. Like the idea in Anne Arundel County, you can't have livestock unless you have 1 acre. So there's that immediate limitation. And so it is interesting. Annapolis actually changed that. And Baltimore never had that rule. Baltimore City never had that rule, the 1 acre rule. So why did Anne Arundel County have that 1 acre rule with these animal units that you couldn't go over on a per acre basis? It was because people wanted that separation between farming and what they would say maybe the city life or the suburbia life or what have you. And so, regulations sometimes don't really help the urban agriculturalist. So how do we change that? How do we make sure we try to promote this integration of farming within an urbanizing area? And I do find that there's another problem, and that is local populations typically, as they get disconnected from agriculture, they don't understand agriculture. And they develop a mindset that I think is a little bit imaginative, if you allow me the license. They tend to think that agriculture should never create any kind of odors or nuisances. There shouldn't be any machinery noises or what have you. And they tend to think that every farmer should follow some type of protocol and not make any of these nuisances, or they certainly shouldn't have any roosters crowing. They should all have this, whatever look this is. It's kind of imaginative. It's almost like a fairy tale look of what agriculture is. And they put constraints in place because they don't understand agriculture. They don't understand the science, maybe. They don't want to embrace the science, of agriculture. And so again, I think we have this urban mindset comes in and starts to put other restrictions on what farming can and can't be. And so again, it's just leaving it to chance, right? It's just a chance that this operation is going to fit in that community, and that community is going to accept it. Here's really interesting. I took this off Wikipedia, but I actually flew into Seoul a few years ago, and you know, when you fly into Seoul, it's really amazing. As you drive out of the airport, which you come across the river there, the Han River, I think it is. You'll notice that there's every little nook and cranny. There's someone farming. Yeah, they got a goat out there grazing, or they got a little vegetable plot, you know, up against every little underpass. And I thought, well, this is incredible. I've never seen anything like it. And so I went on, you know, on Google Earth, and I thought, well, I want to drill down and see how much agriculture is right around Seoul. And so here's Seoul as you're zooming down from Google Earth, the Han River there, coming down the airport. Airport sits out here on one side, the city's on the other side. What do you notice? You notice all this agriculture still left around the airport in Seoul, a city of I think 28 million people or something like that. It's like I know it's in the top 20, might even be in the top 10. And so how in the world did they do that? How do they have this agriculture? I mean, this is highly productive agriculture, completely circumventing one of these big international airports in Seoul, Korea, and then go right across the river, and 28 million people live. That's just not by chance, right? That's certainly not the game that we're playing when it comes to urban agriculture. So over here is Seoul, you know, 28 million people, right? You come across here, and every little nook and cranny all the way around the airport's all agriculture. It's highly intensive agriculture. As productive as anything that the Schillingers or our best farmers could have done here in Southern Maryland. And I think, wow, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. And then I look at the aerial photos over our own metropolitan areas. I don't see that. I don't see that checkering of agriculture. You know, I see the land. I see the open space and the land, but that's all it is, right? When we think about opportunity. And I was hired in 1998 during the tobacco buyout with the University of Maryland. Before that, I was a dairy farmer for 18 years, Navy Dairy. I like both jobs. I like being a dairy farmer full time, and I really like working for the University of Maryland extension educator. I came into this idea to promote alternative crops. So I was going to focus on fruits and vegetables to give a high-end or high-value crop opportunity for our 1,200 tobacco farmers in Southern Maryland. It was kind of my key capacity, right? And you know how many of them actually did? 98% took the buyout in the first year. Imagine that. That's like a light switch. Tobacco was king in Southern Maryland, and boom, it's gone, just like that. Mm-hmm. And we did it in such a way that we had a great opportunity to dynamically change this area into some, I'm not saying we didn't accomplish some, but we had a unique opportunity with the money that was coming in to transition into some really fantastic, almost Long Island style. Anyone been out in Long Island and seen what they've done out there? And we did some. I mean, I feel there were some successes, but I think it was a missed opportunity in what we could have done. And so again, you know, it's really, but I enjoy working with it, the opportunity, and seeing all these small farms. And tobacco farms were historically about 40 acres, and about 20 of it was in production fields, and the rest of it was in woods. So with 20 acres, it's almost ideal for a vineyard or for a small vegetable operation or a small livestock operation. So it was perfectly set up. And we started with things like market gardens and small fruit. And we had such great interest, and we still do, in these things, especially vegetables and ethnic and local markets. And we're just riddled with opportunity and money. Money can be made. You know, these little high tunnels. I mean, I'm right now 100 in line for a new high tunnel project. I'm on a wait list of 100 people to get a high tunnel out of Milt's Greenhouse up in Pennsylvania, the biggest supplier in the area. And I think about that. And I called, I think it was January 5th, and he says, I'll let you know in March, you're 100th in line. And I'm thinking, okay. He's thinking I'll get mine delivered maybe by mid to end of March, right? But right now we don't worry about it. Just hold on. We'll let you know when your turn comes up. It tells me a lot, doesn't it? It tells me that people are making investment in agriculture. They're willing to make it, and they're going at a different level. They're adding technology. It's not just, going out putting tomatoes in the field anymore, right? So again, it gives me good hope because I know what these tunnels are capable of. I did a little chili mix project, the first high tunnel at Upper Marlboro I put in. I think it was in 2005. And you can see I was doing a research project where I had I was growing inside and outside the exact same things. And I was looking at the ability to produce higher quality, and boy, it absolutely was true. The ability to produce was just amazing. Of course, we had the vineyard teams, and we had 16 years of vineyard work at Upper Marlboro. Fantastic. I kind of come up with this idea of meadow orcharding, looking at more opportunity for our small landscapes. This is a picture, and this never ceases to amaze me when I look at Europe and I see an area that's been, civilized, going back to, 1000 AD or what have you, and the capacity that we are. And they still have all this agricultural land protected, and it's just incredible to me. I know we're going to have to do more with educating this next generation of farmers. I hope to put on some Tomorrow's Farmers web modules and things of those natures. I've done that in the past. I thought this was an interesting environmental science and technology article that came out by Costello et al. Here. The assessment and effect of urban agriculture in achieving a localized food system in Chicago using robust optimization. It's a really interesting report. And out of that, I actually wrote a little ramble. I typically like to ramble a little bit in my newsletter. And I wrote a little ramble, and it was looking at this idea. And I came up with this thought: you just can't wish food out of a field. It takes a farmer. Food just doesn't pop up out of a field. It takes a farmer. And so I thought about, well, how in the world is this? Looking at this article here, it was really sobering. It was basically saying that, I come up with this question: are you agriculturally relevant if you are a farmer? And by that, I mean, we question, it's probably a question worth asking of each of us in this hungry and demanding world. The sower went out and forth, and the same seed, and some yielded 10-fold, some yielded 50-fold, and some yielded 100-fold. What sower do you want to be? And so it's science and technology that allows you to be that 100-fold sower. And so agriculture, in this ever-increasing need for farmers to be more productive and more productive, it's exhausting to be a farmer. That's what I said. And it is exhausting. It's an exhausting concept that you're never going to be good enough, that you always got to get better. By 2050, it's not that far from now, 89% of all Americans will live in urban areas. 89% of us. I think we're already in the upper 70s, close to 80% now. And so what they said was that if all the land opportunity in Chicago was put into agriculture, and let's say they talk about this idea of optimized farming, that 130 miles would be required. Now you think about Chicago's reach, and you draw a circle 130 miles in diameter around Chicago. That's a big chunk of real estate, right? But they said if we could actually do it in such a way that it was effective farming, that farmer that creates 100-fold, not 10-fold, then they say we drop that diameter to 63 miles. I thought that was pretty interesting. That told me that urban agriculture does have a chance to be part of the solution if we allow it, and we allow it to be productive. And so again, at the bottom of this thing, it says we owe a big debt of gratitude to our farmers all across the country and around the world. Our farmers are not wishing food from the fields. They're actually relevant. And I think that's going to hold true into the future too. That's going to be interesting to see what the future looks like in agriculture as we become more and more urban dwellers than we even can possibly consider. Also, I thought this was a very interesting article, kind of counter to what most people would believe. And actually, the author, Susan Mock, this came out in October last year. Sarah Mock came off the farm, and she was actually hired. She's actually a writer, and she was hired to do a story to essentially look at family farms and prove their value, really put a really good book together on family farming. And she really got disillusioned in the process. And she wrote this article. It says, I tried to prove the small family farms are our future. I couldn't do it. Wow. And, if the small family farm was the future, why were so many people unable to build one that worked? And these are just quotes out of this article from Sarah. We live in a country that has romanticized small family farms a great deal. When you go across the rest of the world, people don't have the same kind of romantic notions. I thought that was an interesting statement too. In trolling through the historical record, it's clear that the small family farm is less a viable business plan than a social pacifier. That's pretty cutting. Sarah got really disillusioned when she went about. She didn't write the book. She didn't make any money. And she got so disillusioned that looking at this dilemma of trying to have successful small farms. And we probably would say we're ever increasingly seeing corporations and corporate type farms, but that's what it takes to produce the kind of food that we need. And we're just not seeing the success. So what do we have to do to turn Sarah's delusion around? I thought this was an interesting statement. When we see the image of a farmer, we must be mindful of what's being signaled and how the symbolism might be being used to shape our opinion, be it a food item, a policy, or a news story. Is that all we're doing out there? Is just making camera shots and cameos of farms that really, aren't meeting what we need them to do and be survive and be profitable and be productive. And so I thought, anyway, if you look that article up, there's a lot to it that I just skimmed from some of it, but it did bring to my attention this dilemma of how difficult it is unless there's good policy, good zoning, good efforts put in by government in order for this to occur. And so we, as a communities have to turn this around. Communities have together be engaged in the farming operation for it to, and that's something we gotta have to work on. So I came up with this other Dave's ramble based on her article. So, I do like to ramble a little bit. I put here, urban farming is deliberate, decreed the crops master. There is nothing about agriculture that has ever been left to chance or circumstance. All cities have risen from a farmer's field. Why should it surprise us when a farmer plants again where a city once stood? Wake up, farmer, look and see. There's opportunity all around for more intimate style farming. Food knits us together as a community. No nobler calling than to grow something to share with a neighbor. And I love that painting there by Elizabeth Downer Riker. It looks like the suburbs of Chicago. And we see this all the time, don't we? Now we see this. It's exciting to go into Baltimore City and see these little pockets of agriculture. And I grew up in south of Baltimore in an area called Brooklyn Park. And I remember farming when I was there. There was farming, active farming, right down the Pumphrey area. And that they were farmers, my goodness. They were really, it was amazing the product that came out of that area. Now, it's houses, but there's still a few fields down there. Still could be farming in there. So what happened? What happened to that generation? I go on, I put in there, that boy is me. He remembers the donkey pull wagon with exciting farmer shouts of strawberry or watermelon echoing through the neighborhood. That would have been Brooklyn Park. How could it be produce from a dedicated group of farmers found at the fringe of Baltimore? Farming, whether it's done in the lonely countryside or in a small field or a bustling intersection, has profound impact on both the farmer and the neighbor. Every neighborhood deserves a farm. It's time to rekindle the community spirit of food grown on the very ground we daily traverse. Our cities need help. They need the healing hand of a farmer, a man's hand in the boy's hand again, the way my father's and grandfather's hands were helped me the value of honorable travail. Oh, how I long to see their work gloves again. Urban farming is the soul of this nation. We seemingly lost it for a brief moment, but always awaiting a farmer. Won't you be my farmer, right? I think about that, and I just think, wow, what a lost opportunity if we don't make it happen. If we don't make farming a part of everyone's life, even when we're 89% urban dwellers, we got to make it happen. And then you see some interesting concepts like Gordon Grass proposed super greenhouse down city of Toronto. And who knows, robots might be running around doing it. And he says we could have 58 floors, 2.7 million square foot of growing space, feed 35,000 people. Wow, this little super. I'm thinking, hey, technology it's hard to imagine what we might see in the future. We started the Urban Farming Work Group, and the mission here, to help move extension. I know some of you have joined that. I appreciate the help on that. And we're hoping to, make things profitable. Neith Little, I don't know if Neith joined us here today. I don't think she did. I haven't seen her yet, but she did, her colleagues up in Baltimore City. She's our first urban agriculture at the University of Maryland. And, they did a study. This is a Northeast study in urban agriculture. Looking at the biggest challenges: land access, land security, balancing the living wage, selling affordable food, regulations, zoning, building codes, same things that we think of. These are challenges, but they have to be overcome. Wider issues: high-tech implement agricultural inputs, aversion to neighbors, getting people, like I say, community to be engaged and embrace it. Boards with large amount of farmers not having business plans. So again, the idea that it takes business planning, it takes all the latest technology, it takes open-mindedness, it takes connectivity, and it takes community effort. These aren't easy. Maybe that's why it's not being, as successful as we like to see it, as quick as we like to see it. You get into other opportunities. There have been some pretty amazing bills that have actually tried to help. And there's grants and there's other things that we've certainly have looked into. And we, as a list of one of our first meetings as the Urban Farming Work Group for Anne Arundel, we started to list down, what's important, and you can kind of go down through all this list and you see the same kind of things come out. The answer is, I guess the question is, we know what needs to be done in a lot of cases. We just got to make it happen, make it a reality. Extension has, we've got a lot of things that we do, newsletters and diagnostics and science and nutrient management and specialists and agents, and we've got a lot of opportunity to help. And actually going to start a little urban farming clinic this year at our, right here is the, let me turn my pointer on here so I know you see it. Right here is the extension office. It's one of the old dairy buildings. And right over here on this U.S. Naval Academy dairy property, I've secured a couple acres. And I'm going to go ahead and put in an urban farming clinic this year. Hopefully use this as an incubator and a research project area and that's where I'm waiting on 100. I'm on number 100 on my high tunnel. That's going to go plop right down in there. That'll hopefully this March. And so we're going to give it a go, aren't we? So urban, the question then for the rest of the hour then in the group, and we'll open up discussion, is urban farming merely a placeholder type of agriculture? And how can we make urban farming a reality in every community? So I guess that's the goal. And so that's the question. What do we have to do? What strategies do we have to put in place? How are we going to make it a reality? That we have viable farming in the urban sector. And there's plenty of models around the world that I think we could emulate. How do they do it, and how can we do it? So let's go ahead. I'm going to pop out of the screen. I'm going to stop the video at this point. And
Dave, I have a question.
Okay.
About 4 or 5 slides back, there was one that I was trying to read and you flipped it off. I got as far as Baltimore City was giving 90% of the taxes back.